This is the End Zone. Let's move the chains. Top 25 college football teams for the preseason. We're going to be looking at their schedule and then some of their key components. I'm going to give you a little bit of my opinion on each team. So with that being said, let's dive into number 25, USC. They have a very tough schedule. That's why they're so low on here. They got Alabama, Arizona State, at Utah, at Oregon, and then finally Notre Dame. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, quarterback Keaton Slovis, and defensive lineman Jay Tufele. They're among some of the top players on this roster. One thing that I noticed about USC, do I think that USC is going to make a playoff run? Am I buying into any hype? No. But they have a lot of teams on this schedule, Alabama, Oregon, and Notre Dame. You know, if you get one of those teams, if you beat one of those teams, trip them up, then you definitely have a pretty successful season, maybe 8 wins for the USC Trojans. Number 24, Boise State. Really easy schedule. The only really tough teams here are at Air Force and then versus Florida State. Hank Bachmeier returns at quarterback, and senior linebacker Riley Wimpy is going to be the focal point of this defense. They are my top group of 5 team in college football. Number 23, Baylor. I think they take a major step back because of the coaching changes, but they play at Oklahoma, at Texas, versus Oklahoma State, and at Iowa State. So part of this schedule, a lot of the primetime games are away. Larry Fedora is the new offensive coordinator. He should be a familiar face if you're a college football fan, was the head coach at North Carolina. Running back John Love is probably going to be the main guy of this offense, and linebacker Terrell Bernard is a playmaker. Number 22, Arizona State. This is the year that Arizona State can make some noise, but I really think that they're 2 years away from becoming an elite college football program. Let's look at their schedule. They play at USC, at Oregon, and versus Utah. So not the toughest schedule, but their toughest games are mostly away. Freshman sensation quarterback Jaden Daniels will return, and I think it's all up to head coach Herm Edwards. He needs to keep that culture and build on a solid foundation, which he has been building. I'd like to see some more consistency with the offense. This can be hard because they do lose Eno Benjamin and Brandon Ayuk, but they have some replacements. Moving on to number 21, North Carolina. I know a lot of you think that North Carolina should be higher on this list. I just got to see more from them, and we're going to get that test early in the season versus Auburn. Then they play at Virginia and versus Virginia Tech. Not a very tough schedule. They have quarterback Sam Howell, who is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and linebacker Chaz Surratt. I expect a lot of things from North Carolina, but because of the weakness of the schedule, you know, there's not really much room for any slip-ups, and we're going to see what North Carolina is really about early in the season versus Auburn. Number 20, Texas. I'm not really buying Texas that much this year. They do have some opportunities, though, to make some noise. They play at LSU versus Oklahoma, versus Baylor, versus Iowa State, and then at Oklahoma State. So they have a couple teams that are highly ranked on their schedule. Quarterback Sam Ehlinger, last year he had lots of Heisman hype. We expected a lot from Texas, but they disappointed. Linebacker Joseph Asai is probably the best player on that defense. But I just want to see a step forward. You know, can you beat LSU, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma State? Those are your top teams on their schedule. Get one of those, and you know, you could be looking at a kind of a disruptor type of team in Texas. Number 19, Louisville. I love what Louisville is doing. They play at Clemson versus Virginia Tech, at Virginia, at Notre Dame, and versus Kentucky. So pretty tough schedule. Quarterback Mikal Cunningham, he is incredible. Wide receiver Tutu Atwell Jr. and linebacker CJ Avery are their top players. Expect Louisville to be the toughest competition for Clemson in the ACC. Number 18, Iowa. They play versus Iowa State, at Minnesota, at Ohio State, at Penn State, and versus Wisconsin. Pretty tough schedule. New quarterback is basically everything you got to talk about. Can Spencer Petras carry this team? The whole wide receiving core, which is probably the best wide receiving core that Kirk Ferentz has ever had. So there's a lot of high expectations for this offense that we've really never seen, like many high expectations from an Iowa offense. It's kind of weird saying that, but expect Iowa to be a dangerous team this year. Number 17, Wisconsin. They lose their leading rusher. They play at Michigan versus Notre Dame, versus Minnesota, and at Iowa. Quarterback Jack Cohn looks to lead the team, and running back Nakai Watson is probably going to be the guy to replace Jonathan Taylor. The whole defensive line is going to be special for this Wisconsin defense. They're going to control their destiny in the Big Ten. Number 16, Iowa State, at Iowa, at Oklahoma State versus Oklahoma versus Baylor, and at Texas. Quarterback Brock Purdy has a real shot. Now, last year, Iowa State was just a couple drives away, a couple unlucky plays away from having a lot better record. Iowa State this year looks to kind of push that aside and get some wins here. Running back Breece Hall is one of my favorite running backs in the country. And then also linebacker Marcel Spears Jr. Iowa State has a real shot at being a runner-up in the Big 12. Number 15, Texas A&M, a team that we always really hype. They feel like the Texas or the Michigan of the SEC. They play at Auburn, at Alabama, and versus LSU. So while the schedule is tough, it's not near as tough as last season. Quarterback Kellen Mond is a veteran now, and head coach Jimbo Fisher has to get things going. We've been really waiting on Texas A&M to blow up. I think this is the year. The schedule isn't too tough. You know, you're not really playing Clemson. You're not playing Georgia out of your division. I think that this is the year. If any year is going to be the year for Texas A&M, this is it. Number 14, Michigan. They play at Washington versus Wisconsin versus Penn State, at Minnesota, and then finally at Ohio State. My big problem with Michigan is they just cannot beat Ohio State. It's become a thing now. They just can't do it. I don't believe that they can do it. The quarterback is either Dylan McCaffrey or Joe Milton. That's what really excites me. I think that these quarterbacks are really good. You also got wide receiver Nico Collins and a pretty solid defense. I hope Dylan McCaffrey gets the starting job. But Michigan really needs to get over that hump, in Ohio State, now a pretty tough Big Ten. Above Michigan in the Big Ten is number 13, Minnesota. I have a lot of high hopes for Minnesota this year. Can they keep what they had last year? Versus Iowa, at Wisconsin, and versus Michigan. Tanner Morgan at quarterback, to me, is just one of the better quarterbacks in college football. I think that he could even be the second quarterback drafted in the NFL draft. Running back Mohamed Ibrahim is going to take the reins as the starting running back, and wide receiver Rashad Bateman. This offense is going to be deadly, and if the Minnesota defense can just keep what it had last year, I know they lost a lot, but just keep a little bit of it, then the Big Ten has to watch out for Minnesota. Number 12, Auburn versus North Carolina, at Georgia versus LSU, and at Alabama. Quarterback Bo Nix returns, as he is going to be the top signal caller. Lots of people like him in the SEC, but I'd like to see some more consistency. The guy who I'm looking at, though, is defensive lineman Marcavius Big Cat Bryant. He's the best player to me on this defense, and Auburn really, really needs to rejuvenate this defense. They lost a lot. Can Auburn do it, or is this just going to be another disappointing year for Auburn football and Gus Malzahn? Number 11, Oklahoma State. This is a team that is loaded on offense, and I think they have a chance to make a big splash in the Big 12 versus Iowa State, at Oklahoma, at Baylor, and versus Texas. That's a little rundown of their schedule. Quarterback Spencer Sanders was electric last year. Chuba Hubbard, the Canadian, is coming back. And then Tylan Wallace, if he can just get rid of these injuries, that wide receiver, yeah, this offense could possibly be the most potent offense in all of college football. Number 10, Penn State, at Virginia Tech, at Michigan, versus Iowa, and versus Ohio State. They return quarterback Sean Clifford. That's what everyone's talking about. They think that he's going to make a big impact for this team. I'm just not really in love with Sean Clifford and what he does as a quarterback, but on defense, I do like Micah Parsons at linebacker, and then running back Journey Brown is excellent. I just don't see Penn State really taking a tremendous step forward this year, but they are a huge popular pick for a lot of college football fans and analysts, so I gotta have them up here at number 10. Just above them is Notre Dame versus Wisconsin versus Clemson versus Louisville, and at USC. So the good thing for Notre Dame is, other than that Wisconsin game, Clemson and Louisville are at home. Wisconsin is a neutral site game in Wisconsin, so you can kind of count that as an away game. And then at USC, the schedule is pretty tough, but you do get Clemson and Louisville at home. Quarterback Ian Book he just screams consistency. It's what he does. He's a consistent dual threat quarterback. And then safety Kyle Hamilton is probably my favorite safety in all of college football. And the O-line has a combined 114 career starts, so that's going to be the strength of this Notre Dame team. Number 8, Florida versus Kentucky, at Tennessee versus LSU, and at Florida State. Quarterback Kyle Trask is the leader of this team. You got tight end Kyle Pitts and wide receiver Trayvon Grimes. I just want to see a step up from this Florida offense, really. I know what the defense can do, but can this Florida offense take it to the next level? Number 7, Oregon. Well, they start the season with Ohio State. That's going to be tough. Then versus USC and versus Arizona State. So the season does get a lot easier, but it starts off with a bang. Quarterback, it's either going to be Anthony Brown, transfer from Boston College, or Tyler Show. Running back, CJ Verdell. Then obviously we got defensive lineman Kayvon Thibodeau. He is going to be the anchor of this Oregon defense. Cannot wait to watch him next year. Number 6, Oklahoma versus Tennessee versus Baylor versus Texas at Iowa State and versus Oklahoma State. So you get a lot of good home games. Quarterback Spencer Rattler. I'm not really a huge fan of Rattler because I've watched him. I don't like his personality, but he is a great player. Wide receiver Charleston Rambo, though, is going to be the focal point because Jadon Hazelwood is out with an injury already in his preseason. Charleston Rambo is going to have a lot in his hands, going to be the number 1 wide receiver, and I just want to see an improvement from the whole entire Oklahoma defense. If they could do that, that could be really the next step that they need to actually win a college football playoff game. Number 5, LSU. I think they take a step back this year just because of all that they lose, including their offensive coordinator, but they play Texas, at Florida, versus Alabama, at Auburn, and at Texas A&M. Quarterback Miles Brennan is going to be the guy for this LSU offense. Can he do it? Well, he's going to be targeting wide receiver Jamar Chase. And then another guy who I want to focus on is defensive coordinator Bo Pelini, former coach at the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Can Bo Pelini take this defense to the next level for LSU? I think he can. Number 4, Georgia versus Virginia at Alabama versus Auburn versus Florida and versus Tennessee. Quarterback Jamie Newman coming in from Wake Forest. I think that he takes this Georgia offense to a whole different level that Jake Fromm simply could not. Wide receiver Demetrius Robertson, one of my favorite receivers in the country. Then linebacker Nolan Smith. It seems like Georgia has everything. They just got to beat Bama in the regular season. That's going to be a tough ask for the Bulldogs. Coming in at number 3, the Ohio State Buckeyes at Oregon versus Iowa, at Penn State versus Michigan. That should be a win for them, though. Quarterback Justin Fields, if he could just fix his fumbling problems, then he could be a star. I mean, he has all the tools that it takes to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Cornerback Sean Wade is going to have a hefty task. I mean, that secondary, they lost a lot. He's going to be the guy for that Ohio State defense. And I want to highlight running back Master Teague. He has a lot on his shoulders also, but Ohio State coming in at number 3, they're going to be tested early at Oregon. Number 2, Alabama. I think that Alabama is going to be incredible this year. They are loaded. They play USC, Georgia, at Tennessee, at LSU, and then versus Texas A&M versus Auburn. Their quarterback situation is a little different, though. It feels like Mac Jones is just in there to play a while until Bryce Young is really ready. They're just waiting on that 5-star quarterback to be game ready. I'm sure they're going to include him early. They're going to include him versus USC. But the guy who I want to talk about is linebacker Dylan Moses. He's probably one of the best linebackers in the country, but you didn't get to see him much last year because of his injuries. Former 5-star linebacker is coming back to Alabama, and he's the leader of this defense. You also got corner Patrick Surtain II. This is going to be an Alabama team that's not only talented, but hungry to get back to the college football playoffs. In number 1, we have Clemson. It's a mixture of Clemson being talented and their schedule. They play Louisville, Virginia, Notre Dame, and then the ACC Championship. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence is back as a junior. He started off the year last year with the sophomore slump. We're not going to see it again this year. They also have Travis Etienne at running back, defensive end Xavier Thomas, and then corner Darion Kendrick. A loaded Clemson team that lost the national championship last year. There's just not an LSU-like talent team that we saw last year. This year that we know of, at least, I think Alabama is up there with Clemson. But it looks like Clemson has the easiest path, really, just being in the ACC in a weak conference and having so much talent to getting to the college football playoffs. I'd love to know what you think down below. Did we miss any teams? Tennessee possibly could have made it in this top 25. There are a couple teams that you'd like to see, but I'd love to know what you think down below. Thanks for watching the End Zone. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment so we can move the chains.